Welcome to Beyond a Bar, a podcast where justice meets recovery. I'm Devon Anderson, your host, and I think this is our 12th or 13th, 14th episode. That's good. I'm really keeping track. I just finished one and they make me feel so good. I really like hearing these stories. I really enjoy trying to destigmatize recovery. I had somebody come to me who said they wanted to quit drinking recently, and she talked about how ashamed she was. And I said, well, isn't alcoholism in your family? And she said, yes. And I said, well, it's a disease. It's not anything to be ashamed of. It's that your disease has been triggered. And you just have to accept the fact that you can't drink like normal people. And just to be able to talk about these things, we didn't 20, 30 years ago at all. My generation, I'm Gen X. We didn't talk about that. And it's just really nice to know that there's it's not your fault. And if you go to get treatment, you're doing a great thing and you should be celebrated. So I know I say that every time. I had to say it again. And today I wanted to talk about treatment options in the criminal justice system. I will talk a little bit about first offenders and what you should do. But since the whole podcast is right now centered on treatment courts and people who've been through them and people who work in them, I want to talk about those and more about what they are, how they work, and how you get in them. They started in Miami in 1989, and they were revolutionary. There was no concept whatsoever of treating drug offenders in the criminal justice system. It was always lock them up. And I need to do more research to find out who had the idea that maybe that wasn't working, who noticed that it wasn't working, and who started the model. But by now, at this point in time, it's the most studied criminal justice intervention in existence. Everything that is done, the best practices in these treatment courts, is evidence-based and research-based. Meaning, if you work the programs and if they are being executed the way they're supposed to be, you will recover and the success rate will be excellent. There's a lot of ifs there because unfortunately, there are courts that are not following best practices. But if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you work it as a client, you will have success. They came to Houston in 2003. I'm going to talk about Houston because that's what I know. People have this impression of Texas as being really backwards in the criminal justice arena because of the death penalties that we have pursued with such zealousness, let's say. But interestingly, Texas is very much a progressive state when it comes to treatment courts, the recognition of treatment in the criminal justice system. You'd be surprised. And I think that, I think Dallas got, unfortunately, a drug court before Houston did, but we were right behind them. And I've talked about Judge Caprice Cosper before, she actually went to Miami and visited the drug court and did the training that was available in the early 2000s nationally. And by the way, it's still available. It's called allrise.org if you want to start a treatment court in your jurisdiction. It's the how-to and everything you should be doing. And by the way, if you're a judge or somebody who works in a treatment court, and you need to look at the best practices, they're on allrise.org. You probably already know that, but I'm just going to say it. So anyway, she brought the drug court model to Houston in the early 2000s. I was, by that time, ending my term as a prosecutor, right before I ran for judge. And I just want to tell you real quickly what the attitude in the courthouse was. We were flooded. We were inundated with crack pipe cases. The DA's office, the policy was that if you could test it, you could prosecute it. So they would take a crack pipe, it's usually like a little tube of glass, or like a little pipe, and rinse it out at the lab and get the residue and test it. And that was a freaking felony. We had thousands of them every year. And if you were a first offender, you either got probation, and you get a drug and alcohol evaluation. I don't even know what the treatment was like back then. I mean, it was rudimentary as far as I know. Or you would do a 1244A, which is where you would get a felony conviction, but you do county time. So you get out fast. And if you're an addict, that's very appealing because you can get right back out and start using again. So the vast majority took 1244As. I am guilty of offering millions of those as a prosecutor and doing them as a judge until I was a drug court judge. I did not understand that we were creating a gigantic class of convicted felons. And it is one of my biggest, I try not to have regrets. I think they're a waste of time. I try to learn from my mistakes, and I certainly have, but I do feel like an apology is owed. I owe an apology for my ignorance, and I did not understand. That's one of the problems with the prosecution system, is that if you didn't have any experience as a defense attorney, you have no concept of the impact of a prosecution and a felony conviction on your life unless your bosses take it upon themselves to educate you in that regard. And I did not have any education. Just had total unawareness of that. So we all know now how the barriers of a felony conviction with housing and with getting a job, etc. So that was how these little crack cases were treated. If you had a rock, if you had a crumb on your floorboard, if you had a pipe, you would be looking at a felony. So when Judge Cosper came in with the drug courts, they were called hug-a-thug courts. That was what they were called in the courthouse. People laughed about them, thought it was total bullshit. She and Judge Wilkerson they were the first two judges, and then Brock Thomas was the third. And Brock and I were friends through my husband, and he came to me one day, I was on the bench by then, and said, "Hey, we're looking for a fourth drug court judge." And I was like, you're asking me? I mean, and he said, "Yeah, I mean, I want you to come watch a docket." And I came and watched, I don't know if it was his or Cappy's, I can't remember whose it was, but I was very intrigued. The thing about a drug court is that you go see the judge once a week in the first phase, once a week. Even if you're in lockdown treatment, they bus you over, they bring you over to court and you see the judge. And you get to have a really friendly, positive relationship with an authority figure, which is very rare for the people who are coming through the courts. Because if the drug courts are doing the right thing, they are targeting the highest risk, highest needs defendants. It is kind of the court of last chance. You've been on the streets, or you've been to 12 rehabs, you've been in and out of jail, you're tired, nothing's working, you want to stop, or you're looking at a lot of pen time and they're offering you this instead to avoid it. Whatever the reason, that it's really was fascinating to me as a longtime prosecutor to see the judges having these really friendly, happy conversations with people in orange. That was one thing that caught my attention. Also, I was given the statistics of the recidivism rate being so much lower. I also heard about graduates who were helping other people. And it was enough. And by the way, I didn't really like being a judge. So I thought, well, maybe this will be something I like to do. So I accepted the fourth drug court. And I've talked about it on this podcast, I think several times, how it completely changed my view of addiction in the mental health, in the criminal justice system, and how important it is to treat it. And you can't lock it up. It's not going to go away. You could put somebody in prison for 10 years, and if they don't deal with anything while they're there, they're going to come right back out and use. It just doesn't work. So this works. And I was convinced of that. I'm going to tell you a story about the guy who really changed my mind in my own court, and it was Freddie. Jay, I mean, just whatever. I don't even think he'd care if I said his last name, but I'm going to be anonymous. Freddie J, who came in, he was in his 60s. He looked like a skeleton, dead-eyed, just another, crackhead. Like another crackhead, like I'd seen so many come through the criminal justice system. Emaciated, defeated, and he wanted to come into drug court. And when you do that, you plead guilty, you accept the punishment, which is a probation where you don't have a conviction if you finish it at the end. And so I go through the plea language with him, but with drug courts, I always asked, what can we do to help you be a success in this program? And he said, ma'am, if you can get me a pair of glasses and a pair of shoes, I believe I can do your program. And I am kind of notorious for having a terrible memory, and I've literally never forgotten that. I got chills just saying it again because it was such a fundamental, basic thing. He said he wanted to be able to read his papers, and he hadn't had shoes for a long time. So I come to find out that Freddie's been on the streets for 20 years in Houston, smoking crack, living under the Minute Maid Bridge, which is the bridge by the ballpark, which is not called Minute Maid anymore. And I refuse to learn the new name of the Astros ballpark. And before he came on the streets, he had a house, a job, kids, wife, everything, all-American family. And then was it a triggering because he had addiction in his family? I don't know. Was it the addictive properties of crack, which is incredibly high? Maybe so. But whatever it was, he smoked it once, as we've heard on this podcast, one time, and they chased that high for the rest of their lives. And he did that. So we sent him to 90-day rehab. He came to see me once a week. He looked a little bit better every single time. But then I started realizing, God, I mean, it was like watching someone come back to life. He was very smart. And I don't say was because he's gone. I just haven't seen him in a long time. It's been a while. Last time I saw him, he had 8 years. And I gave him his chip. It was when I was DA. It was a while ago. I hope he's still doing well. He's smart, funny. He would get up there and it was like he was on stage and wasn't disrespectful. He was genuinely a hilarious person when we would interact. The whole docket would wait to hear what Freddie was going to say that day. He was leading. He started being a leader at his AA meetings. He got housing after he got out and became the security guard for the apartment complex he lived in. He spoke for drug court a couple of times. For the foundation that was the predecessor to Justice Forward. Amazing transformation, and that convinced me. So I've been an advocate ever since. They are so different than regular courts because drug courts are made up of a team of people. Everybody's on the same side. It's not like you have prosecutor here, defense attorney over here. They're on the same team, working with the judge and the probation department and the treatment provider. And they all meet to talk about, it's called staffing. They meet before the clients are seen, and they're called clients, not defendants. And then they're called up one at a time, and while the rest of the court watches. And that's very instructive because they see people get rewarded. Oh, hey, you're finished with your community service. Congratulations. Everybody claps. There's hugging. Doesn't happen in a criminal courthouse, There's usually crying, no hugging. Lots of hugging allowed. And they also see punishment. Like Monica in the last episode talking about missing 2 treatment appointments. And Judge Thomas, the one who came and got me to be a court, saying, you want to go to court, you want to go to jail this weekend or you want to go next weekend? And they would have to go do 3 days. And sometimes if it was an egregious enough, like missing a UA, something like that, they would recommend the person be taken into custody. So you can imagine the impact that has on a docket full of people going, go see the bailiff. And the bailiff's on the team too. And they love the bailiff. And the bailiff's like, man, I'm sorry, but you got to go to jail for 3 days. and we're taking you in right now. So it's very, I mean, as far as accountability goes, it's all there. And people think, oh, it's like an easy program. I mean, they need to go to jail. That is bullshit. It is harder than jail. It is harder than jail. These folks have been in and out of jail. They could do jail standing on their heads. It's not a big deal. It's not pleasant, but it's not a big deal. This is difficult. This takes grit to get through and a determination. But once they get a taste of sobriety and they feel so much better, once they start getting more responsibility, they get more freedom in the program. It's the transformation. Their family starts talking to them again. Things start happening for them that they never thought would happen again, like no opportunities, like going back to school, like working, like getting to see your kid play a volleyball game. I mean, things like that they had given up start coming back. And that's when most of them end up helping other people. So that was, it was an amazing program. And now this program has spread to people with mental health issues. The jail has like 70 to 75% of people reporting mental health issues at any given time. That's incredible and wrong, by the way. So it's become kind of a clearinghouse for people with mental illness. Well, now they've got mental health courts that can help with connecting you to medicine, to a psychiatrist, to kind of teaching you why staying on your meds is so important. We have DWI courts that help people who are alcoholics stop getting DWIs before they get that third one, which in Texas is a felony. But if you do have a third DWI, you go to drug court. So you still have that ability to get help as well. And then there is, I just went blank, veterans. Veterans cycle in and out. And it's usually if they show that their criminal behavior is directly attributable to either traumatic brain injury or PTSD, or they have substance use disorder, other mental health issues, they can go through Veterans Court, which we have a felony and a misdemeanor here in Houston. In Fort Bend County, they have a misdemeanor one. No, it's both, actually. Sorry. And they connect them with the VA, so they get all their benefits and they get wraparound services. And then with juveniles, that is the most remarkable. I want to sit for a minute and talk about that because I had a personal experience this week. In Houston, we help with 4 juvenile courts: a drug court, a mental health court, a getting kids out of gang court, it's called GRIP, and getting kids out of human trafficking, which Houston is a hub for, and that's called Care Court. And in Texas, the law is from 10 years old to 17 is when you're an adult. So that is the age kids we're talking about. And it's sad and horrific to think about kids in these courts. But at the same time, if they go through these court programs, the recidivism rate is way less than 10%. It's usually around 5% because kids are so teachable. And so I just never knew that when I was a prosecutor. I didn't ever work in juvenile. So this has been a revelation to me. The other thing that's been a revelation to me is that in the gang court, the kids are accused of really serious felonies, including aggravated robbery. And they are inevitably Latino. 95% are Latino. Single moms, first generation, right? Just got here. Dad is either working all the time or not there, in Mexico, whatever, I don't know where. And so earlier this week, our team went to a GRIP court docket. We saw 3 young men come in. Mom was with each of them, no dad. One dad had shot a video because his son was graduating and was at work. He couldn't leave work, but he shot a video, which made the young man cry. And you got to understand, I hated gang members. When I was a prosecutor, I prosecuted a lot of them. So really bad things. So I have had to get over this bias regarding this court. And it's the court staff and the kids that have convinced me that this is a miracle program. They are doing incredible work with these young men. There are girls in it, but not very many. They join the gangs, and I know it's like the movies. Y'all have heard this. I thought it was not true, but it is true. For a sense of belonging, and to get protection for the neighborhoods they live in. Those are the two main ways and the reasons that they get into gangs. And the whole thing about once you get in, you can't get out is 100% true. Did not know that either. I thought that was kind of like, yeah, whatever. When I was a prosecutor, it's 100% true. We had a client who was kidnapped from his walking out of his apartment, taken by force, locked up in a cage, like a kennel, dog kennel, his hair shaved. And I don't know what else was going to be in store for him because his sister got home and a neighbor kind of said, this is what he was taking. He went with these guys and she realized it was probably the gang. And she had location, Find My Device on her phone and was able to get the police there to rescue him out of the cage. Okay. So that is movie stuff. That's real life stuff. So what we've decided, what we've done in Justice Forward and what we did 9 times last year was relocate families from one side of Harris County where they're living to the other side. So think east side to west side or west side to east side. And Harris County is gigantic. And this actually works. It's a physical separator from the gang. And if they play it right, they are anonymous. They can't be found, right? And it's been tremendously successful. So we go to this docket this week and all 3 young men we've relocated. And they all 3 were saying it made the difference. And they've been able to get back on track, get their GEDs. One of them is walking. They've only had like 4 high school graduations in the entire program since it started. And one of the young men that was sitting there today was one of them. They are getting high school diplomas. One of them that we relocated, they had been living in a cart, him and his brother and mom. And now they're in an apartment. And he is already on his way. He's got 2 months sober. It just gives him a whole new lease on life. So that's what I wanted to kind of segue into is what Justice Forward does is we help with things that the county can't pay for. When you get into one of these courts, you get free treatment, free supervision, yay, free urinalysis, random urinalysis. You don't have to pay for those. You do pay court fees that they ask you to pay at the end of the time. But otherwise, you're on your own. Well, what happens to the person who comes into the drug court and is unhoused? Are they supposed to try to do the program from the street when they get out of treatment? And how does that, that's unequal administration of justice, by the way. So we try to make sure that everybody's on equal footing by providing transitional housing for up to 90 days. So when they first get out of treatment or they first get out of jail, they have a safe place to go. Emergency housing, we started that when one of our clients called and said, my sister just kicked me out of the house and threw all my stuff out of the front yard. I have nowhere to go. So we put him up in a hotel until he could figure out where he could go after that. Now we have a contract with a couple of hoteliers in all the counties where we can put people up within 2 hours if something happens. We also help with grief and trauma counseling. You just heard Monica talk about how she had traumatic experiences when she was a child. And I'm telling you, a vast majority of the people through these courts do. But until you deal with that trauma, you are not going to have long-term recovery. You're going to be triggered. Same thing with grief. Losing her father is what threw her off track. And if she had been able to access grief counseling, maybe that would have prevented her from going off on the road that she went down. So we do that. We help with college. You heard her talk about that we helped her with tuition going back to college and even getting her master's. We help with vocational training if you want to go get a job. And then finally, we help with criminal history cleanup. That is what really makes the difference with housing and an employer. And these are the reasons why, if you have the opportunity, or if you have a family member, or you have a friend who has been in this insane loop of re-jailing and cycling in and out, to say, stop, there's help. Now, you think lawyers would know about it? Not all the lawyers know about these courts. And you have to be able to advocate for yourself or for your family member or your friend. Look at Jessica Yeager, who was on the podcast, like really, well, first season. She was the one who goes, excuse me, I want drug court. I don't want to go to prison. Judge Thomas, will you let me in? You know, that has to happen sometimes. Or tell the probation department, tell whoever, I need help. And then you get, in Harris County at least, and Fort Bend and Galveston, you get all the things that Justice Forward brings you to as a community partner. So these are a game changer for high risk, high needs folks. But also, if you're on the other end and you are a first offender, but have a problem you need help with, you need to tell your lawyer that, so they can get you, instead of jail time or instead of a fine where you have a conviction. Step number one is, you do not want a conviction. And if you are there for the first time, you should not have a conviction. You should be offered a pretrial intervention or a deferred adjudication. If you've heard these words, that's what you need to ask for, with treatment. And they will do an assessment and decide what level you have. And it's not going to be rehab. Chances are it's going to be intensive outpatient or outpatient treatment. Take advantage of it and just make sure you don't get a conviction. But if you have any questions, always, we're here at justiceforwardtx.org. We have a resource guide. I think we have the best website about treatment courts. So if you want to hear about all the different kinds, if you missed something I was saying, look us up. Beyond the Bar TX at Gmail, I think is our web. Yes, that's our email. You can email me and I will email you back. You can comment on Spotify, YouTube. Didn't even realize you could comment on YouTube, and I found some old comments, and I'm sorry, I'm just now responding, but I'm checking them more often. This is a volunteer effort, okay? We don't have a staff for this. It's just me and Jeff, but we're doing the best we can. But I'm here to help. Leah, my assistant, is here to help. Mary Covington is here to help. The courts are here to help. The rehabs in town. So counsel and recovery. There's so many places that want to help you. So get help. Ask for help. Don't be ashamed. Don't be too prideful. You cannot do it on your own. Believe me. Take it from me. There is help out there, and we are here to help you. So thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.